Hi, my name is Vivienne Colegrove. I completed my music therapy training in Melbourne in 1995, and since then I've completed further qualifications in family therapy and relationship counselling. I started working in mental health after my music therapy degree and became very interested in the role childhood trauma had to play in adult mental illness. So many of my clients thought their trauma was the reason they were struggling to cope. As I moved into supporting families where a loved one was struggling with mental illness, I saw over and over the role past trauma was playing to keep not just the unwell person but everyone in the family stuck in patterns of interacting with each other that caused all of them so much stress and heartbreak. For many years, I worked with families and couples where trauma had affected their relationships, using the clinical systemic techniques I had been taught in my family therapy training. I found out that family and relationship therapists knew a lot about the effects of trauma on relationships, but they all believed that verbal approaches alone would be enough to bring about change, and for some families it did. For many families, though, this was just not enough. I wanted to use my music therapy skills in a way that lined up with my developing knowledge about trauma, to find a way to work more directly with the underlying non-verbal processes that were maintaining and sometimes worsening relationship problems. But I didn't know how to do that. Looking around at what others were doing, I became convinced that there was a knowledge gap. Family and relationship counsellors have not developed evidence-based ways to work directly with the non-verbal parts of how people communicate their emotions and their longings for connection. Music therapists know a great deal about how to work with non-verbal communication and how to connect people to their emotions, but have not developed empirical evidence about what works with families where one or more than one person is dealing with the effects of past abuse or neglect, and this is affecting their ability to connect well with their loved ones. So I decided that I should develop my own intervention, entitled Tuning Relationships with Music, for parents with a history of childhood abuse who were struggling in their relationship with their child. I was already experienced in working particularly with parents and adolescents, and I knew that existing interventions for this age group were not very successful once trauma was in the mix. So I decided to focus on helping parent-adolescent dyads. Because it's normal for parents and teenagers to have conflict, and this can become very intense where a parent has a history of abuse or neglect, I thought I would focus on helping families to reduce conflict as the main goal for therapy, as this is usually what they come to therapy wanting help with. I wanted to start with the theory and to take a really good look at other trauma therapies used with families, dyads and individuals to use as a starting point when developing tuning relationships with music. My PhD allowed me to spend a lot of time exploring this and writing my intervention as a part of this process of discovery. I then tested tuning relationships with music using a randomized controlled design to see if it would help traumatized parents and their teens reduce conflict and improve their relationship. I found that significant changes occurred for these families. More on this later. In this tutorial, I'll firstly take you through some theory about interpersonal trauma in childhood, that is, abuse or neglect experienced in the context of a relationship with a trusted adult, and how it affects children's development, their future parenting, and their relationships. Next, I'll give a summary of how therapies for adults and their families affected by interpersonal trauma have addressed parenting and relationship problems and where the gaps are. I'll also talk about what the implications are for music therapy practice and intervention development. After that, I'll present a theoretical model based on the literature and existing research evidence about what are the mechanisms of change for families affected by interpersonal trauma who are having relationship problems. From there, I will present a music-based assessment tool for assessing parent-adolescent conflict, where parents and or their adolescents have experienced trauma. Finally, I will give an overview of tuning relationships with music, where it sits within trauma recovery work, goals of the therapy, and an outline of what happens in sessions. So, why is this important? We know that trauma can be passed down from one generation to the next. The saying, hurt people has been used to describe how this might occur. This means that when a parent has been abused or neglected themselves, their ongoing hurts mean they struggle to get close to their kids. The research is also really clear about the negative impact of ongoing intense family conflict on young people's development. It affects not only their mental and emotional well-being, but can also shape their ability to form close relationships with future partners and their own kids. And then the negative cycle continues, on and on. Intervening with families experiencing high conflict is therefore vital to breaking the cycle, to ensure that social, emotional, and mental health problems are not passed on to the next generation. Advances in understanding about what is going on at a neurological as well as psychosocial level for these families suggest that music-based interventions may play a key role. This is a great opportunity as well as a challenge for music therapy. The learning objectives for this tutorial are: first, to expand your understanding of the effects of interpersonal trauma on adults and children, how trauma affects parenting and relationships, and some key theories that inform this knowledge. To develop your knowledge about what therapeutic frameworks are currently used to help traumatised people with their relationships, and how music therapy may help. You will learn a music-based assessment tool for measuring parent-child conflict in traumatised families, and observe some case material of families completing this assessment before and after they have taken part in tuning relationships with music. And finally, you will learn more about tuning relationships with music, an evidence-based systemic music intervention developed for parents and their adolescents affected by past trauma to help them reduce conflict and improve their relationship.